everybody, Cerebra Sana in Paris. Today is Monday, April 24th, the day after Election Day here in France, the first round of elections. And, well, first of all, I want to apologize for not making some videos recently because I was really busy doing a lot of different things, including trying in my own little way to campaign for the man you see on the screen, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who lost yesterday. Well, he scored a ton of votes, but apparently not enough to make it into the second round. So I and a lot of people are extremely sad at the moment because he had an incredible campaign. He really, really, really ran a wonderful, amazing campaign that, of course, nobody really even knew about unless you actively went and searched out the information, because the media just did a total torch dance on this guy, and he would take it in stride. He had a weekly YouTube report, the Week in Review, where he would just go point by point and just set the record straight for all of the idiocies that the media was throwing out at the public. He knew full well what was happening to him, and he was doing his absolute best to combat it. And it didn't work. It wasn't enough, because the way the system is set up, the associations between the actual candidates and the structures that do the pollings and then the people who run the media stations, it was all pretty much pushing everyone to vote in a particular way. And I actually, when I went to vote yesterday, they asked me if I wanted to come back and count. And I said, sure, I would love it. And as a matter of fact, I was actually planning on asking them if they needed anybody to count. So I was really happy that they just asked me spontaneously. So I went back a little bit before 8 p.m. to start the recount. And, just at 8 o'clock, I was listening to the radio on my phone because I wanted to hear the initial results. And they were like, okay, it's 8 p.m. And then there was about 15 seconds of silence. And then it's like, and the first results are, and they announced immediately that it was a duel between Emmanuel Macron, and Marine Le Pen. And I thought, well, this is what pretty much the polls have been saying for weeks, that it was going to be this. And they gave the percentages, 23%, 21%, whatever. And I was sort of like, okay, now I have to go count. And so I sat there and with my table mates, because there they sit you at a table, and there's 4 people per table. And one person gets the envelopes with the votes in them, and he opens the envelope, takes the vote out, diagonally passes it to the person who, let's say, is sitting in front of me, and that person reads out the person's name, and then you have 2 people, the other diagonal, who have the sheet where you have to manually, write a little tick mark next to each candidate's name when their name is called. So I was tick marker number 1, and then the person diagonally in front of me was tick marker number 2, and the person calling out, opening the envelopes was to my left, and so the person in front of me was reading them out. And so she had piles of the votes. As she would call them out, she'd put them obviously in piles all by candidate. So it was just kind of sad and amusing to just watch, because the candidates, I live in an area that tends to vote very conservatively. I live in a nice neighborhood. So nice neighborhood means people live well, they have some money. I don't, but the people around me tend to have some money. So as I was sitting there being tick marker number 1, I was ticking a lot of Macron and a lot of Fillon and just trying not to roll my eyes every time. And it was just interesting. But what is really interesting about this campaign is that we had this candidate, François Fillon, who was indicted. I mentioned in one of my other videos, he is indicted on all sorts of charges of political corruption, financial misappropriation of public funds. I mean, also, employing his wife and his kids in fictitious jobs where they're, lining their pockets with thousands of euros per month and not doing anything for it. So he was not exactly your exemplary candidate, and yet millions of people voted for him yesterday. So I was just dumbfounded that so many people would have given this man the keys to the palace, so to speak, knowing that he's got some issues with truth and some money and well, it's not really that big a problem. Well, for me, it was a big problem. And for a lot of people, it was a big problem. But not enough for the millions of people who voted for him. So the other issue is we've got this study that came out last week by an NGO, or is that a non-governmental organization, that looked into the conflicts of interest between the campaign candidates and just, conflicts of interest, big business, media connections, banks, whatever. And they studied the top 5 candidates. So that was François Fillon, Emmanuel Macron, Marine Le Pen, Benoît Hamon, and Jean-Luc Mélenchon. And the first 4 that I cited all came up with massive conflicts of interest. So these are people who are being supported by people who have a vested interest in seeing them get elected. And the only candidate that came out clean, with a clean bill of conflict of interest health, was Jean-Luc Mélenchon. So he was the only one because he's totally independent. He doesn't take money from big national, multinationals. He doesn't take money from bankers. He's against all of this kinds of things. He's not in bed with the media, obviously, because the media shat all over him during the campaign, and lied. And the only thing they could actually come up with was some outrageous distortion of something that he was suggesting in his program, which was that he wanted to leave the European Union to join the Bolivarian alliance in South America. And that's the only thing they could come up with, which was just a complete distortion of truth. And so he set the record straight I don't know how many times. But of course, the media persisted in saying what they wanted to say, and the damage was done. So, so it was a sad day yesterday to watch, the circus, because that's what it was.
Résultat annoncé depuis le début de la soirée n'est pas celui que nous espérions. Vous êtes un matin tout neuf qui commence à percer. Fidélité à la devise de la République, liberté, égalité, fraternité. Vive la République, vive la France.
And as I said earlier, when I heard the results, the final results, the initial results, right? The polls don't even close until 8 o'clock. And at 8:15, they were already giving the estimations of the turnout, of the result. So a lot of polls did close at 7, but the major big cities closed at 8. So it's outrageous that they could just come out so quickly with these numbers. And then when all was said and done, like around midnight, as the numbers, solidified or whatever, it actually, I think it was half a point of difference from what the polls the pollers had been announcing for the past few weeks. And it's like, oh my gosh, they're so efficient. They're so good at what they do. Right. They're so good at what they do. It's called manipulating people, right? Who wants to vote for somebody who's going to lose? And they basically put it up so that, the lesser of two evils. You've got the young, corrupt banker who worked for the Rothschilds. And then you've got, the person they want to peg as the biggest racist in all of Europe, who wants to leave, wants France out of the European Union, wants to kick out all the immigrants, and they paint her as, this horrible witch. I'm not saying she's an angel, but I'm saying you had really the two opposing factors. Neither one was good for France. Neither one was good. And yet this was how the thing went down, because nobody knew about Mélenchon's program, which was fantastic, which I read cover to cover, by the way, just to inform myself, so I knew what I was talking about. Nobody mentioned all the wonderful things that this man was proposing and how he could turn this thing around and make the world a better place. By extension, the world a better place, but making France a better place for a lot of people. No one talked about that. And because the media just made it out like he didn't even exist for so long, people, talk about top of mind awareness. When you hear something repeated over and over and over and over again, whether you agree or not, it gets into your brain and it affects your thought process. Mélenchon was completely absent from the Google front page news. If somebody wanted to know about him, you actually had to go into the search box and type news for him, or know that he existed and follow him already. So there was not a lot of fair coverage taking place in the media, and I truly regret that for him, because it just goes to show how they will put into power whoever they want to put into power. And at this stage of the game, it's probably going to end up being Macron, because he's the banker candidate, and he's going to sell the song that the bankers like to hear and that big business likes to hear, and that's going to be it. Anyway, so what you have on the screen here is some footage that I shot with my phone, because Mélenchon organized on Monday the 17th, he organized a little boat trip down the canal, and then the canal met up with the Seine, and the boat continued down the Seine. This was an idea that came up because Macron had made an idiot of himself by referring to Guyana as an island. It's not an island. It's in South America, and it's a country that's borders Brazil. And he thought it was an island. So the Mélenchon team came up with the idea, hey, let's go for a cruise, and Anyway, so that's how this idea of the cruise came out. So
c'est pas banal, hein? Une balade en péniche, et on s'arrête et on fait un meeting à chaque escale. Il est au centimètre et des fois au millimètre. Vous croyez qu'il suffit de compter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, t'es chaudronnier? Mais c'est un travail, c'est un métier, ça s'apprend, il y a toutes sortes de qualifications. Vous voulez pas payer pour l'école, mais vous voulez qu'il y ait des gens qui soient instruits. Vous êtes quand même curieux. Eh bien les gens, il faut prendre le temps de les former. Mais à l'époque, ça m'a appris quelque chose, parce que le directeur des ressources humaines me dit « Ah, mais monsieur Mélenchon, vous comprenez, on comprend pas pourquoi ils viennent pas. » Ben, je travaille à faire. Vous autres tous, vous êtes d'accord pour dire la transition écologique et tout. Et il y en a peut-être parmi vous qui continuent à croire, j'espère que non, mais pas ici, qui croient que quand on parle de la transition écologique, c'est une manière de dire aux gens qu'ils vont aller vivre dans les cavernes avec des bougies. Mais qu'ils y aillent, eux, aucun d'entre nous a l'intention d'y aller. On sait très bien qu'au contraire, la transition écologique, c'est une élévation du niveau technique. C'est pas la technique qui va tout régler, mais on en a besoin. Et donc tout ça, ça doit se préparer. Et ça doit se préparer, je l'ai dit il y a un
This was
instant.
right before he got on the boat. And a lot of journalists did show up. I mean, the journalists show up, basically. They show up, but then what they do with what they see, that's where the damage happens. I saw lots of radio, I saw lots of TV, everybody was up there. And then it's just what happens when the stuff gets published that they start distorting things. And I even got interviewed by one of the newspapers because I was walking along the boat with some other people, and I gave an interview to them, and I jokingly said to the guy when we were finished, I said, "Don't misrepresent what I said." And then when I didn't even think it would get printed, and then when I saw the article, I was like, oh, that idiot. I didn't say this, I didn't say that. So he inserted stuff into what I said, and it's just, what are you going to do? It's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. And that's another reason why Mélenchon basically made his own media. He had professionals setting up, all of his live YouTubes. I mean, he did speeches in front of 70,000 people standing in the street, multi-camera, massive, audio-visual setups with the screens, and to pull something off like that, you need professionals to do it. And he did it. And they had like a set up where they would do their talk shows, and the talk shows were there to inform people. It was like pedagogical, and he would talk to people so that they could understand what the other people are talking about when they're speaking a language that nobody really can grasp. So he really made a huge effort to educate people, to make it possible for people to spread the information, and he did the best he could do, and he just got burned by the system, basically. So at the moment, we're wondering what the heck to do for the second round. So I'm sort of launching my own little idea, which is to use your ballot that you got in the mail and go to vote for the second round. But when you go in to put your little vote in the little envelope, you're going to use the vote that you got in the mail, which is obviously not going to be valid, but it has to be counted. And then it gets, like we had one at our table last night. We had two cases. In one case, it was an empty envelope, right? So that's what they call a vote blanc, right? It's a non-vote. And so that goes in, you get a tick mark on the empty envelope line. So we had one of those. And then we had one where they put the name of two candidates into one envelope. So that's nul. It's like, it's negated. It doesn't have any value because it has two different persons' names in it. So that gets a tick box on the has more than one candidate's name in it box. So it would be a way, I think, for us to be able to say, screw you. We wanted him. He should have gotten in. And at least we participate in the game, and maybe there would be millions of people, and maybe it would bubble up into the press that, 5 million people voted Mélenchon again using the old, ballots from the first round. Because they send them to you in the mail. You get a whole packet with all of the information for all of the candidates, and you get your little ballot. But when you show up at the ballot, at the place where you actually vote, they're all there again, and you're supposed to walk down and take one for each person, and then you put the one that you chose into the envelope. So theoretically, if people didn't throw them out, we all still have another piece of paper with his name on it, official, ballot with his name on it. So that is my thing. So I am launching the hashtag JLM 2017 bis. And the bis is what you say in French when you want to do something again. So hashtag JLM 2017 bis. Spread the word, dig out your old ballot, and let's go on to the polls on the 7th of May, and let's re-vote for him, and just show France what we really think, who should have been there. And yeah, the last point I wanted to make, which is really, really, really aggravating, and it does reveal the insanity of the whole system, is that the candidate for the left, right, the Socialist Party, was this Benoît Hamon, who was designated the front runner for the party when they did their primary. Because like everything that happens in America, the concept of having a primary election has been imported into France. So they had their little primary election, and it was Hamon who won. So for a couple of weeks, he was everybody's darling, and everything was fine. And then he started slipping in popularity, and he doesn't really have the profile or the presence to really carry this thing off. And so the paint started flaking off him, Okay, and at the same time, you've got Mélenchon, who is coming out of the woodwork, bringing together tens of thousands of people at all of his meetings. He was doing his hologram meetings, which was this technical prowess that he managed to pull off. Again, just using all of the technology and all of the know-how of just people who know how to do great things, using all of that to his advantage. So while he is gaining ground, Hamon is slipping. And while this is happening, Hamon comes out and says, he offers, his hand to Mélenchon. Why don't you come and join me? And Mélenchon was like, are you out of your mind? Do you not see the momentum that my movement is generating? Because let me state, if you're not aware, Mélenchon is not left, he's not right. He's completely independent, and he doesn't even have a party. He's created a movement, which is called La France Insoumise, which basically means rebellious France. Okay, so it means rebellious, meaning we're not going to put up with this crap anymore. We want to change it. So La France Insoumise was and still is the group that he was representing. And I state again, it's not a political party. It's what it is. It's common sense, logical measures to make things better for us and make things worse for the people who are fucking things up for us, basically. So what ended up happening is a couple of weeks ago, when it became clear that Hamon had slipped so low, people were like, okay, maybe it's time to go away. Maybe it's time to join forces, or because what happens in France is people will they will advise their followers to vote for someone else when they can no longer be the person that they were hoping to vote for, right? So if he were to step aside and say, look, it's really not worth it, people. I know you believe in me, but I really think the best guy for the job is going to be Jean-Luc Mélenchon, for example. He could have done that, and all of the people who had, believed in Hamon and supported him would have voted for, or with a high probability would have voted for Mélenchon. And when you look at the numbers, the way the final tally came out, had that happened, our guy would have had over 25% of the vote, and he would have been number one in the first round. And he would have been up against perhaps Macron, or he would have been up against perhaps Le Pen. But in either case, he would have been in the first round. And so everyone is really, really pissed at the quote-unquote left, which is a farce now. It is completely, dismantled, broken into bits and pieces, and is a laughingstock, basically. So everyone is pissed at the socialists, at Hamon for being the egotistical little idiot and not stepping aside and being a traitor, basically. Because if he really did believe in wanting to do things that are good for France, then he should have opened his eyeballs and his ears and seen and heard what was being said over there with La France Insoumise, and he should have joined forces with them, or at least supported him. And that was the other thing that came out. He actually did say, like 10 days before the election, he comes out and he says, if I don't make it, I'll vote for Mélenchon. He actually said it. And at that point, people were like, that's the kind of thing you say after you have already lost. So you're already throwing in the towel before it has even gotten wet. So it was just a really weird thing. So even though he was almost admitting defeat, he continued to go right through it up until the end and siphoned off all of these, millions of votes, like over 2 million votes, that could have gone to our guy, who would have put him into the first round, put him into the second round, qualified him to go to the second round. So it was a very frustrating and difficult thing to witness. And I don't really know what's going to happen, but either way, we're going to be stuck with, we've got evil man and we have evil woman. So I'm not really sure which one we're going to get, but either way, it's not going to be fun for the next 5 years. So the only other thing that I can ask you guys to do, if you are in a position to vote, is to think about the upcoming legislative elections, which we have in June, which is an opportunity for us to vote into the General Assembly, the different representatives. So if we could get enough of enough of the insoumis to get voted in at that stage, then whoever is the president is going to have to juggle with all of the insoumis sitting there who will be pushing the good programs that we wanted to get in. So I'm saying it's not completely a done deal. It remains to be seen. But it's either way, we're going to have a crap president, and that really bums me out big time. So the last thing I wanted to show you is I wasn't making videos, but I was discovering the fun and insanity of Twitter. So this is my Twitter account, and I have a whopping 39 followers. So if you're interested in what I was doing, I was tweeting different things about the campaign, and this was something that I posted yesterday. I said, I'm having a hard time believing the results map, right? This is the results map here. And let's see if I can make this bigger. Right, this is the results map. So I just put this together. This was in Marseille. This was in the south of France, where he had 70,000 people standing in front of him listening. And then he had like 40,000 on YouTube watching it live, and I don't know, 25,000 watching it on Facebook. I mean, it was just a mass of humanity that was listening to the speech. And he makes his speeches, he doesn't read them, he actually speaks to the audience. Nobody else does that. Everybody else reads. And while I'm on that point, it came out last week that a journalist, a scumbag journalist, had been writing the speeches for Fillon, who's the one who's indicted on the charges. So the day after this meeting, right after it, Fillon made a speech in some hall somewhere, and he was reading and just reading. And anyway, it's just insane that people would even vote for him. So anyway, so I made this graphic because the red sections were what Mélenchon got. And when I was just like, how is that even possible? He had such a massive mobilization going all across France that he could only get 2 departments and the non-metropolitan departments. It was just amazing for me. Amazing. And then just a funny observation is that this, all this yellow stuff, he's supposed to be on the left. He's actually, the wolf of the left disguised as a sheep. He's the right disguised as the left, right? Is what I'm trying to say. So he's technically left, and all his votes are on the left side of France. And then she's obviously far right wing, and everything is, the right side of France went for her. So I thought that was kind of amazing. And then you've got these little niches where the projected criminal, who was our former prime minister, by the way, so he had a couple of little enclaves. Anyway, so that was one of the graphics that I made, and then I just have, you can just go and see. Oh, then this thing came out while the election was still going on. Belgian television network, media network, started announcing exit poll information. And this year in France, they decided that there would be no exit polling because they felt it could influence people who were showing up to the polls late, that, it could change the way they were going to vote. So they said there were 9 structures that do the exit polling, and they all agreed they wouldn't do exit polls this year. So when this thing came out, everyone was like, how is this fake? And people were saying it was fake news. And then they issued a statement saying, no, it's not fake news, it's real, and we have our sources, and Anyway, so that was just crazy stuff happening in the middle of the election. What else? Oh, this was, this just says, shame on the Observer for these made up attacks, right? Invented attacks. And I was still hoping he was going to win. So I said, I can't wait to see their faces drop. Karma's a bitch, right? Because they said, oh, he's a mirage. He's a dangerous mirage. Just another distorted attack on him. Le Nouvel Ops is the newspaper. So I posted about that. This was very funny. I retweeted. I will retweet things if I like them. So this was very nice because we have a mark, not a mark. We have a brand of cream and butter and things. It's called Elle est vire. And somebody just changed the logo and said Elle est virée, which means she's fired. So that was very funny for hoping that Marine Le Pen would go away. Oh, this was me in the little booth. So that was me putting my little vote into the little envelope. Let's see. Oh, here is, this was the thing I was mentioning before about the study they did about the conflicts of interest. Okay, so this is Fillon, the one who hired his wife to do nothing and his children to do nothing. So these are all his connections. This is Macron, all his connections. You can see Rothschild here because he worked for the Rothschilds. Le Pen, she's got connections. Even Hamon, the guy on the socialist candidate, right? He's got, intimate connections with, and it wasn't just them personally, but they're the people in their campaigns who were connected. And I did want to point out something that no one, of course, was going to mention, but that I find absolutely amazing, is these people, even himself, they attended Bilderberg. Him, her. Yeah, they attended Bilderberg in different years. Here we go. Bilderberg meetings. All right, so this is Bilderberg website, the official website. Right? So if you go on meetings, you can go into the different, you could go and see who is there. Right? So if you click on latest meetings, they've removed some. All right, well, I went and I got this information a couple of years ago. So participants, just to show you. All right, so you get the whole, here he is. Here's the guy that is right here. That's him. Okay, that's him. All right, so here you've got the participants from 2015 to 2010. I grouped them by country. So if we go down to France, so this is where are we? 2015. Okay, here's the guy I just showed you. Alain Juppé was another one who was a hopeful, presidential hopeful. Okay. Let's go down to 2013. Here he is again. Look, there he is. Former Prime Minister François Fillon was there. And look, Valérie Pécresse was there. That's the woman I just showed you. That's her. Okay? So you've got 3 of them at Bilderberg. It's kind of crazy. Very kind of crazy. So yeah. So those are some of the things that I just wanted to point out about these people, how it's a system, it's always the same people. And they're always connected. So, Fillon didn't get in. He didn't get in. But it doesn't matter because Macron's going to get in. And Macron is just baby Bilderberg. So yeah, so I was showing you that. Is there anything else? Oh, this was what I showed you. I think I posted about this, didn't I? That he doesn't even show up in the front page of Google. Right? And I also said, and at the last minute, as usual, they pull out the old terror attack, because this was another thing. There was the attack on the quote-unquote attack on the Champs-Élysées, and then we had thwarted terrorist attacks all days before the election. Be scared, be scared. And this was the first election in France that was being held under the state of emergency. So be scared, France. And they were sure to tell us that, the polling offices would have armed guards and sentinel, those sentinel people. It was a circus. It was a circus. Okay? And this was me just saying, I actually I tweeted to the candidates, dear candidates, does Operation Gladio ring a bell with you? Right. So if you're interested in some of the things that I was tweeting about, come have a look. This was during the last debate. He was absolutely fabulous. He did an absolutely fabulous, impeccable job on the last public sort of debate. It wasn't a debate in the sense that everyone was standing around. It was one-on-one with the journalists, and it was a ridiculous program. Basically, it was kind of like the dating game, the way they set it up. It was like, he's 59 years old and he comes from the region, da 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 da, and the doors would open up and the candidates would come out, and it was absolutely ridiculous. But one of the stupidity things that they did was they had to bring some sort of object that they would then put on their presidential desk if they got elected. And so he played along, and he brought an alarm clock, and he said, because I think it's time that things, that we cleaned up this place and that we got, we kicked it into shape. And yeah, he did an excellent job, and everyone agreed that he was just absolutely fabulous. And that all the people that had to follow him, they just looked really pathetic after that. So, all right, so that's my Twitter feed. If you want to come and follow me, I will tweet things once in a while when I get in the mood. And let's see, I have notifications. People have retweeted things. Yes. Oh, great. Well, we can like that. That's somebody saying I want to do the same thing. So that's great. All right. So once again, let me remind you, if you are in a position to vote in France, I urge you to take your vote, your little ballot that you got in the mail, and show up at your polling station on Sunday, May 7th, and slip that in the envelope, and let's re-vote for Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He really deserves our support, and let's not let this thing die. All right. So I will leave it at that. This was kind of just a long, let me just talk to you guys, because I have been away for so long, away from you, and I miss not being able to post videos every day. So I'm with you in spirit, and I hope you don't forget me. Please leave some comments below if you have anything you'd like to tell me about. So I hope everybody's doing okay. And this will be Sari Rasana signing off from Paris. Bye, everybody.